Good evening and welcome. And welcome to this opportunity to share some ideas about Bethlehem University and what is happening here, and particularly a warm welcome to people in North America. It's good to have you listening to us and having the chance to expand a little bit on what is happening here. What I'd like to do during this time is to take probably 10 minutes or so and outline what I want to share with you about Bethlehem and Bethlehem University. And then there'll be an opportunity for people to ask some questions, and Mrs. Maggie McCarty will take those questions and then talk to me about them, and I'll try to answer them as much as we can. The whole session will be around about 40 minutes, so we'll try to answer the questions and give you an update on what's happening here. I think many of you would know that we have been closed down here at Bethlehem University since the 5th of March. On that day, we received a notice from the Ministry of Health to say that we should close for 2 weeks. However, that evening, the President of Palestine indicated that there would be a month-long state of emergency, and so we're into the 3rd week of that now. And this lockdown has meant there's been nobody on the campus except the brothers and the guards, and it's been a very, very quiet place, and we're very much missing the presence of our students here. One of the things that I'm very impressed with as far as the authorities here, particularly the medical people and the police, is that as soon as an incident was found here, and that was in the hotel, Angel Hotel here in Bajala, where after a woman from Greece had gone home and found that she was infected, informed people back here, and immediately the Ministry of Health moved in and quarantined the people who are associated with her. And one of the really important things about this is that nobody has been infected from those people that were quarantined. There have been a number of other cases within Palestine, but most of those have come as a result of people coming into the country and bringing the virus with them. And I think the ministry and the police have done a very good job, and the security people, in containing it. And so in a country of some 5 million people, the number of people infected is much, much smaller than in other countries of a similar size. And I think there are about 120 or so here in the whole of Palestine. Whereas in Israel, they're up in the thousands. So I think they've done a very good job there. As far as Bethlehem University is concerned, we are closed down with no indication at present of when the change will, or when we will be able to reopen. And that's obviously a cause of concern and uncertainty. But for quite some time, Dr. Irene, and the Vice President for Academics, has been working with the deans and the chairs to try to put in place an arrangement where courses teachers are teaching here are available online. And many faculty members had been able to do that. However, the suddenness with which that had to happen left us floundering a little bit, particularly in that first week. But the IT people here have done a wonderful job in working with staff, with faculty, to make them aware of how they can use e-learning. And they've run several training programs for faculty to help them make use of this time. My impression is that there are some very creative things being done, and I've had some comments from some faculty saying that in some of their classes, the students are much more involved than when they're sitting in class with them. So There are some very good things emerging out of this, but it is certainly not an ideal way of moving into e-learning. But I think what we're doing is working with students and working with faculty, working with one another to find the very best way of coping with this. It would be true to say that there are some difficulties that are emerging, particularly with some students who have trouble getting access to computers or whose internet access is not particularly good. And so we are trying to find a way around some of those difficulties. The idea and the aim at present is to complete the courses online. So whether we come back or are able to open in the next month or so, our aim is to bring closure to courses online with assessment and being able to find ways of completing the courses so that we are not expanding into the summer or extending the semester. So that's the aim that we have, and what Dr. Irene and the deans are working on should enable us to do that. I think it's some amazing things are being done, and one of the things we are wanting to do is to make sure students are able to share concerns that they have. And so today I sent out a letter to all students informing them that we've set up a special tool for them to enable them to express what the concerns are, and then we will have people here in the IT department being able to respond to those needs. I'm not sure it's going to completely satisfy all students, but I think what we're trying to do is to do the very best thing we can under the circumstances that we have here. One of the other things I think it's important for you to be aware of, though, is that while we are working here at Bethlehem University to provide the best opportunity for our students, there are many of our employees who are involved outside Bethlehem University who are assisting to support the people here in Palestine, particularly the people in Bethlehem. And there are a number of people who are involved in emergency committees to work with one another to help those who are in particular need. There are people who are working at our other campus at Martin Dreyer in making sure that the animals and the plants there are kept alive. And I think one of the interesting things is that we have a number of professors with expertise which have been used by the people in the Ministry of Health. And I think that's a great way in which we're contributing. One of the interesting things is that the students in science have worked with the professors there to develop ways in which it's possible to raise awareness of what this pandemic is about. And it's interesting that the security forces are using some of those things that have been developed by faculty and the students in their science areas. Students are following up on that, and then there are some education students who in part of their course is to be in schools with teachers, watching and working with those teachers in schools. And with the schools being closed, a number of those students are working with teachers to work with the students there online and are helping those teachers in a significant way, really. So there are lots of things that are happening that lead me to be very proud of the way in which we're responding to our students and responding to the needs of people here in Bethlehem. I think it's important to be clear that there are some major challenges for us here at Bethlehem University, particularly in the finance area. I think it's true to say that many of our students in families who are having a very, very difficult time with finance at present, with quite a number of the breadwinners, the people who are bringing money into the household, being now unemployed or not being able to get to work, and then others who own businesses who are which are closed. And so it's going to be difficult for students to contribute to the tuition that they're supposed to be paying. So that's going to impact on the amount of money that Bethlehem University is going to have available for its operating budget. In addition, with what has been happening on the stock exchange, the endowment that the Bethlehem University has with the foundation in Washington, D.C., is not going to be able to produce the amount that we had expected. And then the third area that we get support from is from fundraising. And many of the people that we would generally engage with have had a difficult time themselves. So I think it's going to be really difficult to expect that those people are going to contribute in the way that we were hoping that they would. So in those three areas, it's going to be very, very tight for us financially, particularly in the course of this semester. And we need to have a look at how we're going to manage the operation here with a shortage of funding coming from those three sources. But I think Palestinians are very resilient people, and I think they're very aware that life is hard, and suffering is part of life. And I think that we need to deal with that pain that comes from the suffering in whatever way, because if we don't transform that pain into something useful, then we're going to transmit it. It's going to be taken out on other people. Other people are going to be caused as a cause for the pain, and it's going to make it very difficult for others. So I think one of the things we have to do as individuals who are dealing with the suffering that we're going through is find ways to learn from it and to be transformed by it. Rather than blaming other people and transmitting that pain so that other people are suffering it. It's a difficult time. I'm very conscious of the pain that some people here in Bethlehem are suffering, particularly because of the financial needs and being confined to their homes and things like that. But I'd be happy now to take some time to have other people reflect on, or to share some ideas that I might have with it. So Maggie McCarty will take up now some of the questions that have come in. So Maggie.
Thank you, brother. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, well, I guess the first question then we'd like to ask you is about what is life like now in the community of brothers without the students on campus?
Well, it's very, very, very quiet. As I mentioned, the brothers and the guards are the only people on campus. And I mentioned to several people I was talking to today about how much we're missing having the young people around. It certainly, we have some beautiful buildings, but that's not what Bethlehem University is about. It's about our students. As far as the brothers are concerned, fortunately, all of them are well, and we are managing. We are taking turns in cooking at present, and some of them are developing or are discovering some hidden talents that the rest of us are benefiting from. But we're in good form, really.
That's wonderful. Listen, we have another question from Vicki in New York in the United States. And she's delighted to be hearing you speak. And she wants to say to you that right now in the U.S. media, we're hearing reports that the Israeli and Palestinian authorities are working together to deal with this pandemic. But several news outlets have hinted about doctors, medical staff, and supplies. Well, they've hinted that they are not being hindered when crossing the border. And could you speak about that, about the collaboration and supplies getting to you?
Well, and I'd have to admit that I haven't been off campus for over 2 weeks now, so I've not have any direct involvement in the supply of materials into Palestine. But I've had contact with some people who have had difficulty with supplies, but I suppose crucial thing is that in terms of supporting one another, I think the medical people here in Palestine are doing, I think, an extraordinary job in supporting and dealing with the people who are sick. I'm not familiar with anybody that's been able to. I know one of our faculty members who has cancer and who was going to a hospital in Jerusalem has been prevented from going there because there's the lockdown of Bethlehem where people are not allowed in or out. But I'd have to say I'm not really familiar with the details of the supply there. Okay.
Yes, thank you, brother. I want you to know that there are tons of questions coming in from students right now. So I know that you plan to contact the students directly and answer many of their questions. They're asking about grades and exams and the like. I don't know whether you want to say anything right now.
Well, I know I'm not directly involved in those. I know Dr. Irene and the students, the academic council are working to find ways to deal with how do we assess what's being done. And I think there have been a number of students that I've been in touch with today to let them know that Dr. Irene and the deans in particular are working very hard to find a suitable way to do justice to what they have been studying, and at the same time to be careful about what's being assessed. So I think that the attempts are being made to respond to the needs that the students are identifying. And I think, as I mentioned in what I said, that the tool that we've set up today will enable students to ask questions, and then people from IT or from the academic office would be able to answer them.
That's great, brother. Sorry, could you tell us about the internet quality in Palestine? How is that?
Well, it varies, and one of the challenges that we have is some of our students are in areas where the internet is not very strong, and so this is where some of the creativity among the faculty has emerged, so that rather than teaching things directly and students having to download what they were teaching, and quite a number of them have developed what they want to teach and then turned it into a YouTube video. So it's much easier for students to access a YouTube video than download PowerPoints and things like that. So I think I'm very impressed with the way that faculty are responding to students and trying to find ways. It's not going to be perfect, that's for sure, but I think that they are making good efforts to address the issues that are arising.
That's great, brother. So I want you to know that as you're speaking, there's tons of good wishes being sent to you.
Thank you.
Lots of likes and lots of hearts and the like. Somebody wants to know, brother, with the students out on campus, what are you doing with all of your extra time?
I was under the impression at the start that I would have a lot of extra time, but that's not proving to be the case. Like today, for example, I had probably about five or six Skype meetings and Google Hangout meetings, organising ones for tomorrow and Wednesday. So, and then responding to requests from people wanting to know some details. So no, my day has been very full. I'm not sure that would apply to all of the brothers, but I know I've been very busy these last 3 weeks.
So great. Brother, there's a question here about the student that was originally diagnosed from the School of Hotel Management. Could you give us an update on that?
As far as I know, he is still under quarantine, but his auntie and his grandmother with whom he was living have had no signs of the infection. But I think he's being tested again. He was one of the ones at Angel Hotel. And I think that what is happening is that the Ministry of Health want to be really sure that, before they tell somebody to go back home, that they're really sure that he doesn't have it. It's important to remember that 17 of those 19 people who were quarantined in the hotel have since been sent home. So, this is why I think what's being done in Palestine is really, I think, very, very impressive.
That's great, brother. There's another question, and perhaps you said this, but what is the number of the number of people in Palestine that have been diagnosed? Yeah. And the second question is testing readily available?
Yeah. Okay. As of today, it's up around 120 across Palestine. Of those, I think there are 46 or 48 here in Bethlehem. And those who have been diagnosed with it. But of those in Bethlehem, I think over 20 of them have been sent home, who now have been tested negative. What was the second part of the question, sorry?
Yes, the second question is testing readily available?
As far as I know, the people who want testing can get it. As I mentioned, though, I haven't been off campus and haven't been tested and have fortunately no signs of it. But those people who have been tested didn't seem to have a great deal of problem in getting tested.
Well, that's great news. So there's another question coming in. I'm waiting to have it finished writing, brother. So one moment, please. Well, if there are no further questions, I'm going to give you an opportunity to say some parting words, brother.
Okay. If I could just come back to what may be of concern to some of the students. I mentioned in what I was saying at the start about the difficult financial position we're in, and that many of the families from which our students come are having a very, very difficult time. The arrangements we have at present with regard to tuition is that we are not expecting our students to pay during this time of the emergency. So we're not open, and with the emergency and the lockdown, it would be difficult for students to get to banks or whatever. So at this stage, just to reassure them that we're not going to put pressure on them to pay during this emergency time. Once that is over and the university resumes, or whatever the situation is, and whenever that happens, we will come back to them about tuition, because we have a responsibility to faculty to pay them for what they are doing for our students, and we need to relook at the whole thing and set some new deadlines at that stage. But I'd obviously reassure students, faculty and staff actually, that the brothers here are praying for each of them, praying that they'll be safe and will not be afflicted with this virus, and that we do have trust in the fact that Bethlehem University is made up of Palestinians, and Palestinians are very resilient people. So we will find a way through this. This is an unprecedented situation that we're dealing with, and even the times when Bethlehem University was closed during the Intifadas, it wasn't in such a situation as we have now. And so I'm sure that we will get through, but it's really very, very important to be realistic, to face up to the fact that these are uncertain times. We don't know how long this is going to last. We don't know when somebody in the Ministry of Health is going to say it's safe now to come back to campus. And I'm very, very pleased that I'm not the person that's going to have to make that decision, because, we could bring 3,000 students back here and suddenly, one or two of them have the virus, and so, that sort of thing has to be taken into account. So this uncertain time is a chance for us to reflect on what's really important about what we are doing, and particularly to find ways to support one another. I'm talking to our Executive Council about the need to find a way to engage with the people in their departments, trying to encourage deans and chairs to be in touch with the people in their departments and faculties, and then to encourage faculty to continue to be in touch with students, because I think this can be a very lonely time, and we've got to find ways to support one another through it, and I'm very, very confident we will. So my prayer is that people will be at peace within themselves, and that they'll find practical ways to support one another during this time. So thank you for providing this opportunity.
Brother, I do have one more question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
There's been a question asked about, a comment about long-term plans and large events have been canceled, such as the library dedication and other things. And are there plans in the works for dedications and other events, like perhaps graduation later in the year?
Yeah. Well, this is part of the uncertainty. Certainly the graduation ceremony in June has been cancelled. We certainly will not be gathering then, but graduation will happen, and that the students who finish will graduate. The ceremony, I don't know when it would be. And see, we don't know when we're going to be able to resume. Some people were talking about 200 days last week. Now, if that's the case, then, obviously we're not going to have any dedication during that time. So we're going to very much play it by ear, see where it is that we're going to be in a month's time, and see, what's feasible for us to do. Okay?
Well, that's great. Well, then also, Brother, this has really been wonderful and informative. And so, behalf of all of us at the Bethlehem University Foundation, who is really trying to raise funds
Yes.
so that we can help Bethlehem University during these trying times. But we'd like to know if we can hear from you again. Would you be open to doing another live broadcast
Sure.
in the future to keep people updated?
Yes, I'm more than happy to talk about. If people will listen, I'll talk about Bethlehem University.
Great.
Okay. Thanks very much, Maggie. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your time, and thank you all of you who listened. Goodbye.
Bye. Okay. You there?
Oh, yes, sorry. I just pulled the earphones out of my ears. So you're all stopped and with the recording and everything?